everyone. I'm Paula Gilbert, the editor of Connecting Africa, and I'm here at MWC Africa in Kigali, Rwanda. And with me, I have Rosemary Kimaku. She is the Business Development Manager for Mobile Financial Services at Ericsson. It's so great to see you.
Nice to see you again.
So we actually spoke a few months ago, and I wrote a whole article about it. But maybe for those who didn't see that, tell me a bit about Ericsson's wallet platform, and maybe a bit about some of the clients that you're working with in the fintech space.
Okay, so I possibly mentioned this in the interview before, but Ericsson has typically been known as a telecom infrastructure company. So we, interestingly, have had the fintech business for over 10 years now, which is under the Ericsson wallet platform, which is EWP. And today we have over 24 deployments globally, 19 of which are in Africa, which is where the magic happens. So I think when we last spoke, we were sitting at 3.6 billion number of transactions and about 36 in value. Yeah. Now we've grown. That's a value of mobile money every day.
Only a few months?
Yeah, literally every day is like the ticker just keeps growing. So we're sitting at 40 billion in terms of transaction value and 2.8 billion transactions moving through the ecosystem. So that for us is very valuable growth. And this is majorly through our partners. So today we mostly, the largest customer is MTN. So MTN Momo is powered by Ericsson. So that's across all the markets MTN operates, MTN Momo. We also work with customers such as Mascom Botswana and TMCell in Mozambique in trying to drive financial inclusion in those particular markets. So Ericsson continues to be a big player there, and we contribute to the overall financial inclusion agenda that is being pushed globally.
Yeah. So you told me a bit about the mobile financial services business. I think not many people know that Ericsson is so involved in that space. Yep. Tell me a bit more about how it's performing and kind of your growth strategy for Africa to get even bigger, even though it sounds like you are growing quite fast.
So I think what is familiar to Africans is that traditionally mobile financial services has been on the premise of CSP. So typical mobile money providers, the MTNs, the M-Pesas, the Airtels, the Orange Money. So we as well had started off the platform of our business working with the communication service providers. And as we've grown, we've seen that in as much as Ericsson business in Africa is pushed by such organizations, in the larger scale, if you look at digital financial services, in markets such as US, mobile money is almost non-existent. Yeah. There's bigger players of fintechs, same as Europe, where card is done. So as Ericsson, we've been looking at an overall picture where we're going to look at the whole financial ecosystem. So you can work with a CSP, you can work with a bank, you can work with a fintech. Anyone that needs to have a store of value account in order to enable transactions, either payment acceptance or payouts, is where Ericsson is strategically looking to go.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
And then I'm interested on your view, what will it take to unleash Africa's digital potential, and really boost economies on the continent, especially when it comes to fintech? Okay,
so there is a report that was done by Google and IFC trying to explore what the market would look like in a few years. So in the report, it's called the Economy Report. It was released in 2020. They sort of said that, look, we think in 2024, we'll be sitting at 180 billion in terms of value in the internet economy. So this is mostly e-commerce, so business online, and probably grow 3-4 times by the time it's 2050. So you can imagine that potential sits there, how much more we have to grow. Yeah. Mobile money now globally is over the trillion mark in terms of value moved, and Africa sits with 66% of that traffic. This is reports from GSMA. So it just tells you, look, we think we have opportunity. So, but now when you come back to Africa and what is important, I think some of the things that are not as obvious to multiple players is that the regulator, governing bodies, policymakers, and the private organizations need to come together to sort of find a unique middle ground to help us grow. So one of the key areas in which I'm glad to be able to get this opportunity to talk about is digital identity. So you'll be surprised that up to 40% of Africans don't have some form of ID. And that's the entry point in order to do any financial transaction. Yeah. So the absence of that, then you will notice that the countries that have some form of identity card or digital identity correlate with the penetration of digital payments growth. Countries like Nigeria, very big on that. Kenya as well. So Uganda just recently just said Tanzania as well. So Ghana. So you can see some of these countries, and I'm noticing that it's important to have some form of digital identity. So either on a national level, on a regional level, I know countries in ECOWAS are trying to have a conglomerate where they can have a single ID across multiple markets, and that's going to make the ease of onboarding customers to digital transactions, especially on payments, pretty easy. So that is a big role, and it needs multiple players to play there. So I think the second thing that would be important to look at is interoperability. This is a big buzzword, really. It's thrown around, but essentially just means that how do we play well together, primarily in the non-competitive commercial domains. So I would give the best example possibly as like a switch network. So what happens is a switch is that it essentially allows transactions to flow through. Okay, so it could be a validating transaction like the ID example I've given, or it could be a financial transaction, but every single ecosystem player, whether a merchant trying to receive a payment, a customer using our digital store of value, whether a bank or card or mobile money, has to go through a single platform to be able to do those transactions. So one very good example, and people who've really cracked this, is India with the UPI. So this national switch, which has been sponsored by the government, allows almost sort of a flat ground for everybody to get an opportunity to play. And consequently, what has happened is that consumers are finding it easier to be able to do digital transactions, merchants able to reach consumers that they would not typically reach on an offline mode. And now coming back to Africa, there are a few countries that have been doing this well. Rwanda is one of them. They have a national switch, which is pretty it's growing. You can see what is happening in Rwanda right now. And then we have the examples of Nigeria with NIBS. They've had that for a long time. All payment players converge into that. And then there's most recently PAPS, which is being pushed by the AU, which is going to be a payment switch, a Pan-African payment switch that I think is going to be a game changer in terms of enabling digital transactions. So there's just some of the key areas I think would be great to drive.
Yeah, I mean, interoperability makes so much sense, but it's quite difficult to do unless everybody comes on board, right?
Yeah. We must play well together.
Yeah. And then I wanted to know your thoughts on generative AI and how it's kind of reshaping the front office, of financial services, and what we can kind of expect, I guess, as we go into 2024.
Okay, so AI is another, very cool, interesting buzzword. I know most people understand AI to be like ChatGPT, but we need to understand that AI in itself cannot stand on its own. Yeah, so today you can go to ChatGPT and asking a question, but it needs some form of human intervention to really validate the level of information it is. So Gen AI in this case, whether it's front office, whether it's supporting any kind of business, plays what you call a co-pilot. So it's like a Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
So let's say even a front office and a customer comes and they're asking a question that you don't have the information on top of your head, you can quickly chat and check, hey, so the customer is asking, and you can complement and validate the information that you're giving the customer. Is this accurate? And the ability of AI to quickly produce close to really good quality results, and of course with the human intervention to know what to filter out is a very big value add. And of course, the use of bots. More and more customers are using that. So standalone bots on the back of it is Gen AI to be able to check what the customer wants, check through the database of information, and respond quickly. So it comes with the benefit of not having to have a huge resource pool of customer service agents to, just simple requests such as, why can I find this? What can I do this? Typical FAQ. So I do think it'll continue to grow, but will consistently play like a co-pilot. The human being must be present in that particular interaction.
Yeah, the co-pilot is a good way of describing it, I think.
Yeah.
So how do you see, we've been speaking about AI, but maybe also technologies like 4G and 5G, kind of creating that next wave of disruption in Africa in financial services?
Okay, so if you think about how mobile broadband has grown over time, so what was most familiar to everybody was 2G and 3G. So it was mostly based on voice, but on the back of it, USSD has been really the opener towards introducing seemingly rudimentary but very penetrative payments infrastructure. And so what happens that if you think about when we're moving to 4G, 5G, it's literally opening to much more affordable mobile broadband, which allows you to use a smartphone. And what happens on a smartphone, you can use a much more mature use case. So as the continent is moving away from typical transactions that are cash in, cash out, or agent, and then you're moving into such more complex use cases such as BNPL, savings and lending, embedded finance, you will need the power of high-speed internet to do that, the power of smartphones that can have sophisticated apps to do that. So 4G and 5G is really going to drive those capabilities greatly, and especially for markets that are pretty mature, they're already using that today. I experience that in Kenya every day when I use mobile money.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
And then I know one of your big passions is the inclusion of women, right?
Yeah.
And we know the mobile gender gap is still so big. So I'm just interested, how is Ericsson focusing on narrowing, the gender gap when it comes to financial inclusion?
Okay, so I think we're playing in multiple roles here, just by virtue, like I said, having the platform in itself, which is enabling financial inclusion through our partnerships, continues every day to contribute to narrowing that gap. But some interesting initiatives actually that I thought I should talk about. So Ericsson today has partnered with what they call the Smart Africa Initiative, and they have a digital academy where they give access to education. So it can be various education through schools, Connect to Learn, some initiatives that are being strong there. And anything regarding digital education comes from the basic level of education. So empowering children to go to school, more so in very tough communities where girls are not able to get access to education. So it starts from the leverage of that, and then digital education is just a layer that you add onto it. So I do think those initiatives will continue to grow. We obviously participate in forums such as MWC. We have some active engagements on the background with various partners that we believe will continuously just contribute to the discussion about narrowing the gender gap. And obviously me sitting here talking about it, it's a very personal topic to me, and continuously just putting it out there that, look, we need to work at this. My country has been one of the best where we are almost at 50-50. Some countries such as Ghana, women are, more women have a mobile money account than a man has. So it's working. Something we're doing right is working.
That's great to hear. At least we're moving in the right direction,
Yes.
and things are working.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time.
Yeah.
But thanks very much to Rosemary Kimaku, who's the Business Development Manager for Mobile Financial Services at Ericsson.
Thank you. Nice to meet you again.